Oh, perfect. Okay. All right, you guys have a good one. Bye.
What did we buy?
Oh, thank you. I was just telling them my story about how I built it.
Yeah, that's
I was like, what is that? It looks so much different when you come through.
okay. Cause you got meals going.
Amber, I have a question now that you're in front of me. I'm still not able to register for fall classes. And I emailed Liz about a week and a half ago, and I haven't heard back.
Is it blue? Like when you go to log in?
No, it's like, so I even unchecked the box that she told us to uncheck, and it's still saying that it, like, nothing, like, it can't search for it. But nothing's coming up. I can try and show you.
Let's try it.
It's
Interesting.
The only one that I've been able to come up with is the 735, but it won't let me like add it to classes to enroll. It just says that it's there.
Oh, I see. Oh. Yeah.
So I unchecked that. What's the, so I'll show you my 735 one.
So just don't put any numbers in there.
No.
Nope, and then put fall, and you're gonna have to, you might have to update. There you go. So there you go.
That's what I was doing.
Check the little guy, and then do graduate. Search. So you should be able to enroll.
Okay.
In the sections, you just click select. So although it shows like blue,
yeah,
you have access. You have administrative access to be able to do it.
Okay. Which ones? Okay, so 7. So for us, we're doing 735, right?
We're doing 731.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
And so it says that it's
Yep. And then click next, and it'll allow you. Yep.
Okay.
It'll allow you to add it.
So I have 731, and then we're not doing 780 yet. We are doing 780.
You're doing 780.
Okay. And it doesn't matter which one.
It does matter.
Okay.
So you should be in.
I can go up to my Slack.
Yeah, we look at your Slack and somebody pops it on.
Yeah, which class? Yeah, I can pop the class.
All y'all registered for the fall.
Right? I'm registered. Registered, graduated, already done everything.
Oh, perfect. Sorry.
And you put that in general, right?
Yeah, I can pull it
Because I can't register for the class either.
I'll show you.
I was having problems too.
It's a little tricky, but. Oh, that's meals.
So 731, 737, and 780.
Yeah.
Does it say
Free?
all it says on here? Section 2, is it the ULD message?
Thank you.
So it's the 1001 and then the 1002, section 1, and then section 2.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Section 1, section 2. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We give it a couple more minutes. I'll use it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw Michael coming back in a minute.
Just talking to somebody.
All right, Amber, you're go.
Okay.
So I got, yeah.
Oh, I got it.
Yay.
So I only got one, the other one's in.
So do your class search. So search for your class. Okay, now you're gonna search for ULD. And then do graduate. And then uncheck that box. And now hit search. Okay. So although it looks full, you should be able to enroll in the sections that you need to. So you're gonna be in 731.
For this one?
Yep.
Okay.
737, section 1.
Okay.
Okay.
You have that. And then 780, section 2.
780.
Yep.
Section 2.
Section 2.
So when you search for it, just don't put in the number. Just put ULD graduate. There you go.
Okay. 780 section 2.
Yep.
780. Oh, 1002?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Got it.
Great.
Thank you.
Who's teaching 731? Do you know? Yeah.
Jillian Barclay. She works for
Pizza!
Governor Sandoval's office.
I only like this group, so I only got it for you guys. So don't tell. Really, it's because I don't really like
It's because we
Tigers.
clap for you. It's a
It's
thing.
because I like the
It does.
instructors in this class better than I like the other.
You're
Just so
welcome.
I just let you guys know. So don't tell.
Don't tell them.
I only like this group, so it's all yours. Don't share it. I'll share it with you.
Did you bring plates? Thank you. Did you bring napkins?
No, that's for the other group. He makes the other group so he gets plates.
So other group gets plates, no pizza.
And clap you. Actually, he's probably the only person I didn't tell.
What's the place you said to do your place?
Yeah, we give them away this, fall.
Huh?
They give them caskets.
Oh, I'll give you a rip the new one. He's tough.
I'm not ready to look at it.
He's tough.
Yeah. Who's tough?
Annoying?
He is. I heard.
Yeah, you get rid of the new one.
What? Is he your instructor for coming up in the fall.
Did you
It says.
Yeah, I was wondering.
The whole first set of classes we took.
He's thoughtful and he pushes.
He will push you
but
harder.
He will push you hard, but no, I would not say like
Rips your new one?
there's nothing like his demeanor is very calm, and very good, and like all of that. So
Yeah.
it's like a good like.
But it's a challenge in a way that like does make you change your thinking. It's a goal in a way that's
What
in the moment,
yeah.
you're not, you may be like, no, that's the point of it.
Yeah.
Bless you.
I'm gonna go grab some plates.
Oh.
Tell me what 400 papers are.
I have
anxiety, just let me know ahead of time.
Yeah.
Most spring papers.
What one is he teaching next?
What? Their legacy.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
You want him then.
Oh.
It's slightly different than the way we did it, but.
I mean, I know that's the problem. Is it smells good, and I just made a sandal. Right. You want this? Yeah.
So.
It was. Should we give them much?
It's like, I'll do it. As long as you're, it's 2 miles away from the city, 1,000 yards in.
I mean, okay. We started 12:30. She was.
What's the evening? That's where I went.
Oh, she going to your. I think that's what she.
I don't know, some boys.
I want to test out my new monster.
If somebody handed you.
Surefire, Austin, New Barrel.
You guys even eating pizza, or did you eat sandwiches?
Did he actually really only put it in this room and not me?
Right.
That's
I mean, I'll take it with me.
Well, not those be the good way.
Yeah.
Do you guys have Michael's number? Because the sooner we start, the sooner you guys are out.
Oh yeah.
He's down politicking. All right.
He's already doing design thinking, so we can start without him.
He's already doing it. Engaging stakeholders.
Yeah, he's engaged. Yeah, I think he's the only person I didn't like in person tell that too. So I mean, we can start, and like also you guys can eat pizza as it comes to like whatever. He is a very smart man. Yeah, no, he is very smart. And he does already do a little bit of probably of that because innovative solutions to things. Thank you. So did you guys notice just even in the presentation that that you heard just a little bit ago, like a common theme that was going throughout that? And I was hoping that everybody was making the connection because I mean, define a problem, come up with innovative solutions, apply it to the policies is actually what they were talking about there. But then tell your story. Tell a story with it in order for that to come to life. And so that's kind of the common themes throughout making significant change. And that's where this process comes into play. So we want to run through it. We're not aiming towards coming up with an actual solution. We just want to run through it, everyone together, and then talk a little bit further about how you guys felt with regards to the video-based learning and anything that you did take away and the themes that came through. Because one thing that we noticed was that the park and ride shares were actually a common theme kind of throughout. So I mean, we could even start there of like, okay, actually the new solution is now this. This was a common theme with 3 different groups, 3 different completely, you're addressing 3 different areas in transportation, yet it still came to, this came up each time. Another thing that I actually just completely lost my train of thought. I just lost it. But it will come back, I'm sure, as we're doing this. With the group, with Michael's group, that they hit a dead end when they thought, you guys thought it was one solution, and you hit a dead end. That's perfect. Like, I mean, no, you don't want to hit a dead end, but you thought you were going one way, that your solution was actually, why aren't you coming to my area? And then you actually found out people didn't want it that you were talking to, and how you need to come up with that. And so this is why we need to do interviews, and this is why we need to observe, because that, of course, reading on paper that nobody comes to my neighborhood to pick us up, it's this many miles to the nearest bus stop, the obvious solution seems, well, we need more bus stops. We need to put in a bus route. But then as you dig deeper and deeper and deeper, coming up with that, that's actually not the case. That's why you do this as this process. You can apply this, as we mentioned in the videos, to absolutely everything. You could have a system at work where I think one of the videos talked about call times at the hospital, how it reduced call times is because if you put everything up here and everybody that's involved in the process, you talk through what the solutions are, how else are you going to reduce call times unless you just tell somebody that they need to pick up the phone faster, you know? But it's getting everybody involved and everybody really interested in the solution to whatever the issue is that actually gets the buy-in and gets real change happening. Another thing that I don't think we did end up talking about was that with regards to transportation, in many of the ways that you guys approached it, it is a system and it is a service. So it's both designs, but when you, your team with monorail, when you were looking at what added bells and whistles could the monorail have, then you actually get into space design. So Wi-Fi would have made that better. Bar carts would have made that better. So now you're looking at space design. And so even though it's still providing a service, it's all of those different things. We were on a ferry, and the seats, I actually took a picture for you guys, but we don't have the thing on, and I'm not tech savvy, so like me getting that set up to show you a picture of a chair, which would not be appropriate. But I can draw you a picture. So it was intended, it was only a 5-minute ferry, just intended to take you across the water. And it had like a pole, and it had seats shaped like this in between each one. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with that?
Like what?
How many? Yes, it is shaped like that. How many people are missing? Yeah. There's, you know, you could fit twice as many people.
If you had a different space.
Yeah, that would look butt. But it did. It looked like a butt. And then also, who are you discouraging from sitting who doesn't have a butt shaped like that? You know, so like both are true. Yeah,
You'd be fine on the ferry. The ferry's for you.
That, I mean, you have already like eliminated most people from being able to sit. Yes, it's only 5 minutes, but then for only 5 minutes, the people who need to sit may not be able to get into the seat. It might be an elderly person that can't, you know, fit in that. And so it's just, I don't know, like that the minute we saw it, we're like, this is space design. Space design. So they needed to maybe reevaluate that. So as we're going, I did want to give a little bit of feedback as far as ways. I know that it was mentioned that if even just one more week after knowing about the visualization tools, that would have been helpful. So it doesn't have to be this way, but like one of the monorail would have, for a visualization tool with that solution would have been really well with like the master plan community, like drawing the picture of like where the monorail would reach, having that go above the cities and all the trees up above, you know, something like that on an easel while you're talking about it. And also survey results. So like if you had a bigger picture of like bar graph of this is of the respondents, this is how many people said blank, you know, that could be a really useful one. With regards to the ride share and, yeah, that was ride share and the park and ride, I would think a diagram, like doing like a flow chart, that one would work really well to tell that story. Yeah. And I'm thinking more of the, like the, I guess that one's actually called the flow chart, not the flow chart, the diagram. What's the one with the themes, like a scene for movies? What's that one called? It's a flow chart. No, that's the diagram. That's a diagram.
The flow chart had the
for the
arrows.
seniors, like so you can show the senior like answering the phone, like not being able to like can't use the app, like kind of like the commercials where they're like all of the stuff falls out of the cover, like every day activity is awful, and they're like, oh, like, you know, containers just fall everywhere, and it's like a little old lady trying to use the phone, and she's like, I can't, you know, and like throw, something like that. So that would enhance and help tell that story. So we're gonna have, I know you guys grab pizza, but we're gonna have you guys all like come to the front of the room. We are just saying public transportation again as a blanket statement that is something that we want to address, and so it can involve what you just worked on. It can now involve the things that you learned in your research that came up as something that you would want to solve. We're starting over there. So you're coming from blank slate. Yes, you can add monorail, but add something else with regards to now this is my concern. about public transportation and something that I would like to address. So we're all going to spend the rest of the time hanging out up here in front of whoever's watching. So come on up.
Can we stay here for a second, bro?
You're gonna be coming up.
Oh,
Yeah. So we're gonna try to avoid Amber's purse and stuff.
So we're just writing it down.
Yeah.
Design thinking's all
We're
about
gonna do
sticky
like
notes.
this. So we're gonna do sticky notes so we can move them around. So yeah, right. So have that.
We'll add two too. So.
Bye, anyone.
We got pizza.
Is anybody watching? I can't even tell.
I don't know.
At some point, somebody will. Hi. So we're starting over. We solved all of the problems in all the world, and you're like, no. I never got a chance to tell you we were going to start.
Or just everything. Just anything.
Not solutions. You're talking about issues that you would like to address. So we're starting over. So like erase. Not
Sticky notes. So there are multiples. Design thinking loves sticky notes. There you go.
Maybe I should go there. So we're
Not starting over them ones that were on. You use your data that you gathered, but we're now saying, so what do you guys?
I've been thinking and then something.
I got mine.
And write stuff off. Somebody put working for it.
Working
for.
working for, let me write it.
I'll write it. I'm for it.
Your one pen, Richard.
Yeah.
And then, Michael, the only other thing I think that we said while you were gone was, did you notice the themes even when they were talking about how to address policies? Like that it's the same as like you're going to define the solution, come up with creative, or define the problem, come up with creative ideas, but then you need to tell a story in order to sell it to the rest of the public. So it's kind of nice to hear over and over. Right?
Low leadership. Oh, leadership.
Low leadership.
What do you call? I can't think of this. Like different levels of government. So you have federal, state, local. Like
Not municipalities. That would be all.
what is municipality? Like how
Yeah.
That's crazy.
intergovernmental.
That's like just right, it's crazy. And do a bar. It just was a crazy person.
She was like getting off BART and like, she's got a throat slash. Like straight up. Like, whoa.
That was a crazy person who did it. But it wasn't Bart's fault. It was crazy. But it's still safety, they still need to.
I was gonna say the bar screw that.
The fact that they never kicked you off of the monorail.
You just said
that is a problem.
Hey, were you observing like this?
No one said nothing. I had my 40.
Were you observing like did you dress up like a kettle too? Like blow your glasses and like. Yeah, right out there.
Can't even read that when it's written on these things.
No, but someone did it for 24 hours straight.
Really?
And
What did you put?
in the old
Destination.
In
Like,
Philadelphia.
So that came up a lot too. Is where they're going is not always where we're taking.
I think we all tapped up.
I can't just let this pizza go to waste.
No.
It's hot too. I know. And they got sausage. The one I want.
Also, I had more in when I did my thing. We did the thing.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, I don't know what.
Oh, I have some.
Here.
Oh.
Submissions to us.
Do we put infrastructure on here?
That's what I just wrote.
Are you putting, okay, so he's outlined, did we just put it on here? What about like timing, like, is it gonna be on time?
There you go.
I also
Yeah,
did like
effectively.
frequency and like schedules. So if you have a bus line running like once
But even
every
if it's
2
supposed to
hours,
show like, it's
Some
not
like
not
stop,
time.
right?
Yeah.
So, like how the subway does too.
Why do you probably
Like maybe they don't slow down certain pieces.
Okay.
We love, you don't know.
Yeah.
No, for real. Another thing, why do you know? So you get stuck with somebody who's in a wheelchair or some family arguing. But it's not the bus driver like, oh, I gotta go to work.
Yeah. All right. You guys feel good?
Safety and right.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We'll get your throat slashed.
You're not sitting down yet. I mean, eat your pizza, but. Okay, so already you guys can see how many more ideas come up when multiple people are looking at it anyway, right? Like that's another point of doing it this way is, and we all have different backgrounds. Very, very different backgrounds. So what is a concern to us? And that's why it's important in public meetings to do something a little bit more like this, so that everybody feels that their voice is heard. I want you to now take everything that's on here and help each other group even this into things. So like there's tax incentives here, and there's also sales cost, cost and efficiency, and so on and so forth. So work together to group those into kind of key themes.
What about riders and low ridership?
I know he was like,
incentives.
I love post-it party. Post-it party. They're gonna be so sick of talking about transportation. We heard it came up in the last week too. Either that or like,
they're gonna be.
or everybody can get a job at RTC and
love
know how to solve.
Maybe the local buy-in, like ridership.
I didn't want to interact with the first person. I didn't want to.
Cooperation and public collaboration.
Yes, I told him on there. Go to it. And he said he texted his name, but I'm like,
You know, you can go to any university and like start a company.
I know, it's really great. It's so crazy because like with the start of this, it's so fun. Like we're
still costs.
they're like 40 and I'm like I can't. No one's gonna cry. I know. Like we've got different like
Yeah, that's still like a
fight.
fight.
So we're gonna work, you know, with state lines.
So here would like draw local
That's
in,
when I'm-
public
no,
buy-in, rider
that's-
incentives.
Nobody in the country?
No. So what they do is they equip like a room with a camera and then like
Oh,
the
it's
professor
just
just
by
clicks it on.
It's interesting.
And
You know,
safety-
we're so far behind.
Safety of riders.
Yeah,
But you guys are being innovative on this part.
Yeah.
yeah. I know, it's weird.
Yeah, backwards.
It's just because of culture, right? 'Cause
Also it's expensive.
it is expensive. But if you look at it, like, if you didn't have to drive to campus and
I
pay
think
for
this is
parking.
looking
That's
to
not
a lot
really
of partnerships
But
and
then, like, I work
like outside.
closely, Josh and I work with the accounting chair at the business college, and he's like, honestly, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, if we don't start.
What you guys teaching? Teach. What you thinking?
Can I add one like to this, like space design?
Sure. Yeah, you can keep always keep at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Oh, we put it on there already.
So
Or San Diego.
Yeah, that could be. Based on San Diego's solution.
That's a great. Sounds like a solution right now.
Yeah. Like, he's lucky that $100 back.
We just for me, were you guys give them kind of a like a general title? Yeah.
What's SD?
Right? It's just like
That's what I was like.
yeah.
I'm down for that.
All right.
Super
What do you
down.
want to title these?
Super down.
I thought this was the title, public presentation.
No, they have
That's the
subsection.
why. So you can do that one directly on the board too. If you'll put it
So
above.
label, yeah, your.
So maybe time is here. You know this?
Pizza's important. Hey, when you talk about time and like efficiency, there you go, right? You're doing multitasking.
Money.
Maybe
Cons or?
yeah, maybe.
No.
Like, yeah, problems. This one would be like problems.
I would classify those problems.
I see those as like more like partnerships / competition.
Oh, competition, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What? Problems with
Or just maybe like community entities.
Or that, yeah.
or that. I want to look at you. Sure. All right.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You know what's not on here?
What's that?
Maybe I'm wrong. Planning?
No.
That's
Isn't this planning?
Kind of, so it is like planning, so we can do planning here.
We need-
Infrastructure, more bus routes, destinations, public. You have to do planning to get all these.
That's fine.
Stuff there, public
There we go,
waterways.
planning. You got it, you got it.
I put
You know, there's
fun.
so much easier as a group together.
Could this one kind of be like buy-in? So like low ridership, rider incentives.
Yeah.
What, no, what's, yeah, end user, right? Isn't that what we're saying?
End user?
Yeah, end user. What's this one? Space design.
Yeah, let's take those two.
You can put that
We
planning.
just put design in because
We
it's
can put those in planning too, I think.
Yeah.
these ones.
Yeah.
So riders,
Yeah.
Would you not put that with end user?
Which one?
Since that's your
Safety?
concern?
Oh, yeah, so safety.
Now that you've grouped end user,
And then
and that's actually
space
why you do
design
groups.
could be-
There we go.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah.
And just issue with it, I don't know. This is sweet problems.
Take those and put it in planning.
Traffic is on planning.
That's
Yeah,
like
the
planning.
slide
Yeah.
into planning. Carbon emissions.
What are you planning to see what type of, objective, like.
Wouldn't that be
maybe
community?
efficient-
No.
Yeah, how it affects the environment, that's planning, like what type of, buses, like will it be like green buses or like.
You're the boss,
cars, so, yeah.
whatever you
There we
say.
go.
She's got the marketing. You guys have the marketing.
Yeah.
And I think this is also too, like with this community, as long as we're like, are we thinking of this also as just like, this is the dynamic of kind of Las Vegas when it comes to,
So this can all be under
Transportation.
planning, because, well, it can be under.
could be. It's up to you.
they
Some of
both
them.
be- Yeah, some of them, could, so.
Public collaborations could be under planning. Corporate cooperation could be under probably money and planning.
Uber, Lyft, taxi, et cetera,
Mhm.
pushback, that can be just planning,
Money
because if
and
they're doing
planning.
surveys, they're pushing back, because maybe Uber and them are pushing back, because they want it themselves. On certain areas, that can be the end user, because a lot of end users may not want that in their area. Hey, I'm.
Yeah, you got it, you got it. You sit down.
And,
Like, I got that.
and then intergovernment, partnership.
That's planning.
Planning. It could be both.
I could write a second one.
I'd say planning. I wrote it down, so that's what I think.
Everybody's gonna want to say under planning.
Oh, come
Oh,
on.
you're gonna do both, and just like this, oh, yep, to the line, yep, see?
So they do in the prison system, huh? Everybody gets a little bit. We win.
Is that how you do?
Thank you.
Father fingers and,
You deserve a pizza.
Yes,
no risk.
Set them out.
So are we satisfied with that, or can we move around? Sorry, I'm not an instructor, I'm just.
No, that's actually the whole process is that, like, basically. The dirty pen.
Oh, that's also a beauty of it too, is like sometimes when you start out with one thing and you think that that's like how you guys have talked about it, you think you're going one way with it, but then you start to bring other people in and you do it together and you realize that's actually not even a thing because it goes into everything else. So you can focus on it a little more closely.
And I think a couple of them could go under that whole money and planning.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, each of you, regardless of what category, because you can go cross-category and you can do as many as you would like, because not all of these were your own idea. But now, a check mark on the sticky note that now means the most to you. That you
So just
want
one?
to pay them. No, pick as many as you want. That you would want to pay the most attention to.
All of
Or
us
that you think is the all
So
of
like
it.
go through,
Yeah, not
Individually.
together, individually.
individually.
Oh.
Pick which
choose,
ones need
choose
the
which
most
one
to
you
you.
feel needs the most attention in order to get to a solution.
And it can be multiple.
Like the larger categories or the smaller post-it notes?
The small.
Oh, I see.
I guess, yeah, it would be within that.
Too crowded. Thank you.
Yeah, there we go.
So, infrastructure. Safety.
Right. So which ones have
Oh, cost.
the most on them?
Infrastructure.
Public collaboration.
Public collaboration.
Schedule that makes sense. Can I see a lot?
Safety.
Cost and effective. Efficiency.
Everybody cared about that.
Yeah.
3.
Cost.
Any other?
4, cost and efficiency.
These all are try that 3.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah. But it's also involved integrated into all of these, right? So it kind of what's funny is it went back into like a larger category. So let's see what the 3s. So space design,
Transportation.
schedules,
Next to it.
this one.
And then safety of riders. Next one.
Safety of credit and local buy-in. Right. So you know, oh yeah. Infrastructure or public collaborations with schedules that make sense for the team?
I think it was in time, isn't it?
It was, but now it's not.
Oh.
Where would you put it in these other categories?
Why can't it stick together and combine those two?
Yeah.
into one?
As this
Or
or?
as
Next to, in between those two, space
Yeah.
design
Okay.
and.
Sure, okay. That would fall into that one. Or that would be more public collaboration, yeah. Safety of writers, also public collaboration.
Uh-huh.
Or is that infrastructure?
it have to go both ways because
Yeah.
the public's gonna come up with the methods too.
Yeah. So then it's funny, like as many things that were in here, like how many times the cost like actually came. So then the only then concern is keeping it low cost with these other things being involved, right? So then I think you could keep doing this, right? Like we could keep just drawing it down. So if these hit both of these areas, so schedules and frequency are kind of the same thing, right? You're saying the same thing, is that,
Yes.
even if you have access, the access needs to be within the time frame and something that is still. So then you could take this that has this kind of common thing, and that's where you would then not start over, but that's where you start to build your solution from. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
How you can, I mean, you could do this 15 different times, right?
Yeah.
Of drawing it down. And even, so sometimes just if your themes were different, that would also change how it's broken down at the end. Like if your theme was like a smaller category from planning, that it was actually only based on competition was one, and then stakeholders was the other. That could be a piece. But then once you take, and this doesn't have to be your choice, I just chose it because it was the two with the most similar. And so saying then this is the most important for this group of what you chose. So then you start to look at what is affecting this. So not
You
only,
didn't really do a lot of just want to check. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, you're not.
I thought about
I'm kidding. Yeah. No, we need you. We need
Not
you
yet,
on the,
not yet.
we need you on the video.
Not anymore.
So then from here you would say, like who is involved in this decision making? And
That's interesting.
yeah, so it's not only the RTC, but it's also like what else is happening on our roads at the time. What is the flow of traffic like throughout the community? And so then you could be looking at even like metro statistics and things of that nature. And so
Metro Police Department?
Yeah.
Okay.
like you could be looking at a bunch of different stats in different ways. So I guess the point that we're trying to make is through observation and research is where you start to get a different idea of what the actual problem is. Even then, doesn't mean that you can immediately come up with a solution. You draw out what is something that you could actually choose to draw out what is something that is attainable that I can do right now. Like I can make a phone call to the RTC and like suggest this, or I know somebody who does this and I'm going to start working on that. Or you can look at stuff that keeps coming up, reoccurring, and go from there, but then you have to look at all parties involved. Like how many right now feel that the schedules, like if you were to look at the RTC schedule, that you could actually make changes that would be enough to affect the city? Like we're just, with the knowledge that you have, I would say most of us probably not, right?
Yeah, we could affect that?
Right.
I'd like to think we could.
We could, though. But I'm saying, like, how many of you feel like right this moment that you would have enough knowledge to go ahead and do that? You wouldn't. You would then be able to work on, but starting that's your starting point. And then, so solutions come out of those by breaking it down even further, and then you apply it, right? So then you would have to then at RTC, like, actually apply that system, see if it got buses there on time, see if it got people to places faster, and so on and so forth. And that's how you would actually test your prototype. This is assuming everybody would be willing to test that type of a prototype, and then you go back to the drawing board if it worked or it didn't, right? So, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we could do this for essentially every issue.
Every issue.
Essentially every issue.
And you will be. So next class,
What?
yeah, next class, you won't do it like this. This is why we're teaching you what you're going to do in the background of now all of your solutions to issues, like whether it is just you, and how you need to approach it from so many different angles, because you will get stopped in the middle, like, oh wait, this is why they haven't done this. Chances are a lot of the stuff that is going to be vetted is solutions that somebody else came up with, and here's the reason why they didn't go that route. But anybody can come up with a reason not to do something, right? And so you want to find the ways around that and to come up with multiple different solutions so that something sticks, something that makes sense to everybody, something that makes sense to everybody who has to spend the money to do it. That would probably cost a lot to redo the entire bus system, but it's doable. It's absolutely doable. Something, you know, it's probably like any other company where stuff just got added and added and added. Somebody came in at one time, was able to take a little bit of data and improve the operation, but you can't stop it completely in order to take the time to reassess and just start over, right?
So it just keeps getting added onto and added onto. I mean, you would be able to look at too, through observation again, you know, I'm just on my way home, there are, some of the bus stops have the enclosure and they're protected by the sun, and then there's multiple that are not. I wouldn't even know what bus to get on, you know, and if I have to look it up online to find that, what if I don't have access to that? You know, whether it's, I don't have a phone that will do that, or I don't have Wi-Fi in the area. You can run into that even with traveling, and you're like, I don't know what, you know, subway to get onto or whatever. So some of them had the shelter, some of them didn't, some of them had a giant map, some of them didn't. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. You know what I mean? So then does it take more time because so many people are stopping the bus driver to say, where is this going? Rather than just knowing that they can get on and make it to their destination, because that takes time, right? And then if he has to tell them no and redirect them to a different bus, no, actually the one you want to take, that's minutes, that's money. Like every single time you're stopping and having those conversations. So we are showing you this so that in the back of your mind, like I said, when in your next class, you're going to be getting case studies, you're going to be getting policies, you're going to be getting just different information that they're going to say, how would you approach the solution to this issue? Our natural instinct is to just take immediately what we know and go for it. But instead, take the time to look at a couple different ways of end user, stakeholder, all of the things that would affect also in just a timeline too, right? There's so many different aspects of, well, of course, of public transportation, but of any urban issue that will affect something else when you make that change.
No, it's more just,
Sorry, I go off on my
no, it's just understanding, ensuring, like, I mean, our role is to ensure you understand and feel comfortable and confident using this process.
Well,
and how much it can be applied to.
How much better if you're not defending your solution, but just like a good solution because you've researched it every which way, right? Nobody, like, I don't know if you guys noticed, and this was actually just a trigger. Every time one of you gave a piece of data, we started writing. It's just an automatic thing. Data drives policy, data makes change. People, it resonates with them. Yes, stories are beautiful and you want to wrap everything into a story of why you're even working on an issue, but most of the time you're not going to change policy based on heartstrings. You're going to, by showing real data, that you can make real change. This is, you know, what we believe can happen. And so every time that you guys said it, it was automatic. Like we just started writing, and I didn't catch that until about like the fourth number that came out. But it's interesting, and then because people start to apply then their own solutions, right? Once they hear the data, well, if there's 4 points, you know, of this, then if it costs that much money, then you know, I know where to get it. My brother Johnny has it. No, you know, like just whatever it is. But so, yeah.
Yep.
You guys love transportation. You're all
Everybody is now going to go set this up.
But it's interesting, right? Like all of you had really, really interesting data that were you surprised by some of the stuff that you found out? Anybody?
I was surprised that people did something wanted in their
That's
area.
to me.
Yeah.
But I can see why, because you move away from those existing public areas that have that to get away from that public transportation, because where I stay at is, are you where this is, you can't get up there. If you have a car, you ain't going up there.
Yeah.
But if you have access to it with a bus route, then you have people who are coming from other sides of town have access. That means it could be a higher rate of crime. Well, I didn't read about things like higher rates of crime and things that weren't at that time, you know. But you got to really be really desperate to get over there and try to.
Yeah.
Like you may get by coyote, you may get bit by coyote or something.
Higher risk of that.
Yeah.
So if you're coming to my house, you're coming for it.
Yeah.
You're not exploring.
Yeah.
Coming to the
Yeah.
state, right? Yeah.
No,
But
somebody-
if you still
everything
wanted
there.
to push that, because also the dynamics of cities change, right? Like so where you're living now, like the dynamics might change a little in over the years. What is you know happening in your neighborhood is happening somewhere else right now, and then now you need a bus route to where that is. Like so, it's interesting that there's got to be some sort of stat that they really are applying to that of where they're putting this, you know, and so I mean, okay, with the 25 people, how can you guarantee 25 people? I get it, but that's what they want. But I mean, are they doing surveys before they go out? Because that's a lot of money to
Right.
guess the 25 people. I mean, we want at least 25
I would
kids
like
to
the
eat at every location that we go to. But
Meet up and eat.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with like bus route though.
With the, sorry, even with the, with the parents and for like people watching are not wanting to go, we don't know what their team, who don't want to be stuck out there. So when you out there, you out there.
Right.
That's just it.
Yeah.
So maybe the parents people are saying no, but if they start with the kids, they probably like, we do want a way to get to town, town
Square.
There's over here, town square, but they can't get over because the parents like, no, I'm not taking it.
Right.
But that will be helpful for them because at a certain age, you can't ride Uber by yourself.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody older or whatever, so there's always the Uber driver will tell you, I can't take you because you are in this age group, so.
I was surprised by how wrong I was about my assumptions on some of these things. I thought that the RTC just, you know what, let's put a bus route there.
Yeah, we
There's more
don't have
people
one
than-
there.
I
It's
mean,
within 5 miles of
It's pretty much, they've got down to a science. I mean, they look at how many apartment complexes are in one place, how many people, how much vacancies are in those apartment complexes, and they're talking to city planners to find out what that looks like. And so I thought that was really, really interesting, and that they are really responsive to community folks once you can get to them. If you can,
the
get to them.
monorail folks.
Monorail folks are
Monorail folks, they don't want to talk about
But I mean, to that point too, like I know their lobbyist. I've worked with her, so that's why I had access to her.
Yeah.
Where I think that that's not readily available to people, and that creates issues, not just for doing projects like this, but to actually get input to the folks who actually need it. Regular people are not taking surveys. Regular people, not that saying that we're not regular people, but like people who are doing their day-to-day stuff.
urban issues.
Even I would say around food insecurity issues, they're not sitting there taking surveys. They're trying to figure out how to put food on their table, not figure out how to make sure there's a supermarket down the street. So.
When you talk about the stakeholder piece, that's important too, and why processes like this are so important, because you bring in everyone together, and it's like you write down the people that or places that you could get in touch with, and somebody else could be like, oh wait, I needed that person, like can we connect on that? Or somebody will bring up someone that you didn't even realize you had an in with, and so that's also the beauty of bringing in all of your minds together when you're trying to find a solution to an issue, because you never know the networks that you all have access to.
It's actually easier doing it this way too, because I didn't feel responsible for another piece. I just solely focus on this part, and we all brought something different to the table.
Yeah, and even under just the giant scope of public transportation, every person and every group in here, you all chose something different.
That's crazy.
When we were reading them, we're like, it
What
was
did they choose
amazing.
to
It
say?
worked out like perfectly because you did. Who knew that everyone was going to pick something totally different?
Did they do the same thing we did in the other class?
We don't know what they do.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
And it's also different from how we learned.
I heard it was terrible.
Well, and I'm on camera, so I'm not gonna, I'm not
Now you
going to,
are.
right? It's not that, it's, we wanted to make sure that, that we try to approach it in a way that we felt, now it's just looking at the bottom half of me, was expressed in a way that could be solidly carried out, right?
And then all of the pieces were connected. Design thinking, and I mean, coming up with a solution for any issue. There are 7,001 different ways that you can approach that. And I think that it's when you have something giant like public transportation or super small, like just one bus route in one neighborhood, you have so many different ways you can go with it. And it's important to see the connection in that. And that's just, it's a different approach to it. And I think what's something we just really wanted to make sure that it was all connected so that you could go out and be faced with any issue or policy and know kind of that everything was connected. You'll realize that you do this in probably many aspects of your work and other parts of like your life that you did not realize you were doing that.
Well, we don't do it like this.
Well, if you don't
It's different,
like it's
exactly.
actually, so when we were taking this class, we put up just a big piece of construction paper, and we said how, because we've been working in childhood nutrition for forever doesn't mean that we have all the answers to everything, right? We thought of everything, right? And we wanted to also know what was really important, what our coworkers were looking at. Like, why are they doing this? And like, there's probably reasons, right? There's probably policy against why we wouldn't do certain things. But so we just put up on a big sheet of paper, and we just said, how would you reach more kids in the summertime? And we've actually moved forward with 2 of them this summer. I mean, in some of them, it was like, okay, you don't understand the program, but who cares, right? Because all of the ideas were valid, and we did. We moved forward with 2 of them this summer, and so like you can get ideas from everywhere, and so that's where
you know, as much as I like trees and I don't want to waste sticky notes all the time. So there are other ways, like there are online versions of this too, through different, like IDEO has one, and so does, is it Harvard actually has come up with, they do something called the D School,
and
which
it's all about
it's all
design
thinking. But you also saw the difference of when you're able to move them, how it kind of even changes a little bit of what you're looking at. And then when you come back to say, okay, well, of all of these things, what is the most important? And if you had the community there with you, then you start to see a different picture. You start to learn that they actually don't want what was a good solution out there. Yeah.
So I'm assuming you do food insecurity for kids?
Yeah.
So
I do hunger relief for kids.
So when you talk about that issue, which is a little more narrow, is it easier or harder to do something like this?
You know what?
Because public transportation is ginormous.
It's gigantic.
Yeah.
I'd say what was nice about having other people get involved is because when you do know an issue to a certain degree, you start to look at, because you know we run programs that are also federally funded, so we know the rules of that federal funding.
Yep.
It starts to make your brain a little too focused on what we can and cannot do, and so it's nice to have others come in and say, you know,
Have you thought
feed
of
them
this?
here. Have you thought of
so
this?
simple.
Because you're like, you know, we have. Okay, how can we make that work? And so coming back to it again, rather than just saying, actually, it's difficult to do that. So, no, that is more specific. Even specific, though, you can still come up with a ton of different ways to come up with it. Because I mean, like if you were doing that, so we were saying like for summer food, for Mita Bonita, right? What are different ways that we can feed kids? Then all of you would come up here and you'd say, okay, public parks, public schools, like the pools, like all of the different areas that you could think of, and whatever we weren't at, then we would take those and start to look at how we would actually, and who are the stakeholders in that. So, yeah. So how did you guys feel about video-based learning?
Loved it.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Yeah.
I like the group aspect as well too.
To be grouped.
I will say though, and I have this feedback for Chris and the team. I prefer having the class first and then doing the work after. I know this is a little different than that, but for me, I feel like it's harder to learn, like here to figure out on your own, versus when we have the in-person class first. It's like this is like what we're trying to do, just kind of like the logistics of that.
Yeah, because you know how you get great. You know what to push for.
Yeah, you know what to do.
Yeah. Well, and that's us. We fought for that of just like more on participation too, because all ideas are valid, right? In something like this, it's more actually just about going through it and learning the process. I don't really care what your solution was. Of course I care. You guys all had excellent solutions, but what I'm not grading somebody on the quality of their
Solution or whether you could or couldn't get in touch with somebody.
It was
the
process.
process.
Like, going through the
Yeah,
process.
the other way is like you bring two different methods.
Yeah.
And then, you're learning your method, and then bang, it's class time, and it's paired.
It's just been different every class. Like,
Yeah.
like one class we've had, it's like class first, and then here's the work you need to do to follow up
So
on
you got
this.
to see that you liked that better.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, for me, it's just like consistency.
Sure.
It's just, if it's gonna be like this every time,
Yeah.
it's fine. It's just-
Well, and we'll say, like, because you guys technically, I mean, yes, we could give you a whole nother assignment for this week. We'd rather just do like a questionnaire because you have a whole like week left. Do you know what I mean? And so that was kind of weird to have it a
We
little
thought
bit
it was
in the
next
middle,
week,
but
yeah.
like, we did.
We thought it was next week.
We're here. Okay, so the two pieces of feedback that I did get, like aside from having the class first and then doing the assignments, was having more time after the
Visualization.
The tools piece, like of knowing that could have, enhanced kind of the presentation, like having more time after that. And then what was the other one that I told you?
I was just having that up first. The visualization. More
Oh,
time,
right,
and then
or
to
stating
time
it
to create
earlier.
Yeah,
Just
just
stating
doing that earlier so that you have longer
Okay.
to create
To
your
do that.
prototype
I
if you
think
choose.
when I saw the video online before, it was like, oh, she was visual, and I was like, well, it was very hard for us to get together as a group. Everybody was doing it, so I'm like,
Yeah.
if
I was
we
not
known
in
at that
town.
time, we would have.
Done that while you were together.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. No, that's perfect feedback. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And also, I think turning things in online as a group is something that they need to figure out too, because you turn it in for us, but you know it still comes up on mine like as a 0 or something.
Oh, we'll grade you.
We go with it. We.
But I did put our name over there.
Yeah. No, I know that.
No, we saw it, and it's true because only 3 have turned it in. So yeah. Cool. Any questions for us? Do you guys feel like you could apply this to other things? Yeah. Do you feel confident that if somebody told you tomorrow that you were going to do a case study on the Flint water crisis, that you would be able to at least vet
Use
through
this
some of
process to come up with a
process
solution.
against ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the challenge. I think the
But it will
challenge.
lead you there. It will lead you there because it'll show you themes.
Yeah.
It'll show you themes.
I think the challenge though is like be responsible for each part. I like the whole team approach to it because it's if I'm just doing it myself, I'm gonna look at it just from one angle. So
Sure.
I'm gonna interview people from
You guys
that
can do
funding
that
angle.
always. Like if you think about it, like so say it's all individually that you're not split into groups, split yourself into groups to split up the research too. So that you have a fully and I will say, you know, now too, if like in your next classes and when you're look at other cities, like because you'll have more time and you'll know that now, like going into it. There are a lot of things that have happened that other cities have vetted through, and how they apply revenue funds to actually make it a better, you know, transportation system. You what?
You like the wallet?
Yeah. It's different, right? You're like, I'm supposed to be solving major challenges. Why am I making a wallet?
But then you overthink it too.
Yeah. But
I was overthinking.
some of those wallets I would buy. Like,
I
I would
was
buy.
actually really into a lot.
Yeah,
I was like, I want that
I
one.
was like, I do a USB cord.
Yeah. I liked that.
I liked it a lot.
The one receipt one, I was all about that.
Yeah.
It's a good vibe right now.
So,
But it's
very
something
good.
so simple that walked you through the entire process.
Yeah.
You could apply it to something simple or huge.
Well, if you guys don't have any questions, you're free to go.
All right,
Thank you
record
very
time
much.
too.
You'll get an announcement about just a survey or something that we will send out. But
Yeah, appreciate it. I really actually love those solutions, and when I do end up talking to my friend from the RTC, I'll tell her those. And if I ever meet anyone from the monorail, I'm going to give them
tell them that they don't answer emails and it's very rude.
I can show you all the attempts too. I'm like, really? Then I call.
You see the bottom on it.
Yeah, then you call the same name.
And I feel like you guys should actually just write Uber and tell them that is something they should know about the senior piece.
That they should
need
call
that
them.
personal contact.
Figure too, Uber they'll call you if they don't see you.
They're like, we
They
have
should
so
get to
much-
call you if
they're
they-
You should just call them 5 minutes
Yeah.
earlier on that and let them know you're coming, and that saves.
So
Like
we
that
have
was-
so much people, we have so much things on our plate that we probably can't get to you right now. Like, I'm just like reading the RJ because there's so much information on the RJ, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are bankrupt, you guys are this, and it's like,
Yeah.
no wonder you guys can't get to me.
No wonder you're busy and you didn't answer my emails.
I just need 5 minutes, that's it.
Yeah. Well, good luck in your next class.
Thank you.
We're gonna need it.
If you guys need us to help walk you through anything, feel free
We're
to reach
happy
out.
to.
So you have our email, and
Yeah.
so if you're like, I don't really want to ask, but I need to know how to do this.
All right.
We're happy to help.
I will use
you.
my resources.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Use your resources.